It came on. Okay, it's Wednesday morning, around 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and it is once again time for relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. Today is Submarine Wednesday, or Subwed, in quasi-military abbreviation kind of speak, like Subpac West and stuff like that. Which means I'll be working on the Renwall Cutaway George Washington prototype nuclear missile launching submarine, 1960s vintage kit, of which I have 3 so that I could make one, because, you know, they're vintage kits and I didn't want to buy a pristine one because that would be too expensive. So I bought 3 started ones, or things that had missing parts or warped, whatever. And yeah, getting near the end. So I'm going to be working on the machine room still. It looks like it's almost done, but when things look like they're almost done, then that's when there's an hour and a half worth of little dots of paint and touching up and then retouching. And oh yeah, I forgot about that kind of stuff that happens. So we'll see some of that today. Anyway, I'll be bringing the machine parts out fairly soon, so I can remind myself, you know, not so much reminding you, but reminding myself what has been done and what yet needs to be done. I had projected once near the beginning of the year, you know, a couple of weeks ago, that, oh, it looks like I might be done by the first quarter of the year, meaning by the end of March, but it turns out that I'm going to probably not going to be streaming from Friday and all of next week, because I am dog sitting, and I'm told that the dogs are fine if they're left alone for a couple of hours, but you know, they're going to be a little stressed out because their regular parents aren't going to be here, and I'm going to be sitting for them. So especially on Friday, I'm definitely not going to be streaming on Friday. Next week, I just don't know. Depends on how they're doing and how I'm doing. I might, you know, stop down here to the workshop and just work on things for, you know, like an hour or two if it looks like they're behaving and I don't get too anxious about it. So I'll just repeat this a couple of times during the stream, that I will not be streaming Friday, and that the schedule for next week might be erratic to non-existent, and then hopefully come back soon after that. And then there's more travel planned to go to a warmer place during February. So yeah, the plans to finish by the end of March are being interrupted by things coming in on Wednesdays instead of Submarine Wednesday. And then on Mondays and Fridays when I do stream, I'll be working on minifigs like this one that I finished on Monday. This is kind of a broken robotic kind of thing that's leaking oil and rusting and has smoky battle damage and that kind of stuff. So, you know, that came out okay. It's just, you know, it was just something to play with during the stream. I don't think we're ever going to use it on our Dungeons and Dragons stream show, but there it is. That was kind of fun to paint. It was relaxing. Okay, because I couldn't really mess it up, and I was just painting with metallics and then doing some wash on it. So that's done. I can put it over here, out of the way, sort of out of the way. And then I started working on a basilisk, which is all blue at the moment, but it's going to have different red shaded spikes, and then different blues kind of shading a lighter underbelly, and, you know, some white dry brushing on the limbs, and then the teeth I'll have to get painted ivory. And it's probably got some sort of glowy eye things. Anyway, this is what I'll be working on the next time I don't do the submarine. So not Friday, maybe next week sometime. Again, that really just depends on the dogs that I'm sitting. So I'm going to put that aside as well. The other figure, this one probably will show up on our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. This is some sort of moss fungus monster. It's mycelium is growing down here, and it's growing up into this beastly thing. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's going to be friendly or not. It's good. It's very, very big though, because our minifigs are, come up to about its knees. So it's going to be a very large fungus monster if we run into it. So that's something I did. And yeah. So here we are, Sub Wednesday. And let's look at what's happening with the submarine. This is the box of things I'm working on. So it says machine room, but it's really engine rooms. But there's more than just the engines here. So the way the submarine works is that there's a reactor here that's in the submarine. This compartment is completed. Then the reactor superheats water under high pressure. That goes to a heat exchanger where superheated steam comes out of this pipe and comes into these rooms through this little pipe here. And whatever comes into that pipe runs everything in the submarine. So all of this stuff is like creating electricity, desalinating water, running the propeller. I think that's what's going on down here. I'm not sure. It doesn't really say what all of these things are. One of these is a compressor. Compressor number 85. Yeah, so there's a compressor. That gives a lot of compressed air, which is important to keep, the inside of the submarine with air and stuff. But it's also used to launch the missiles and the torpedoes if that ever happens. So yeah, I'm not following the a CO2 eliminator. So some of these actually do have names. That's pretty cool. This whole big thing here just pulls carbon dioxide out of the air, and when people get asphyxiated, which happens in closed environments, it's not so much that there isn't enough oxygen, but that there's too much carbon dioxide, and then the air exchange in your lungs doesn't work. So anyway, there's 2 compartments, 4 decks total, that all have all sorts of stuff on it. Oh, there's a condenser. That's a condenser. That's an air conditioner. That's pretty cool. That's a turbine. Maybe that runs, I'm not sure which one's the colors. Anyway, you'll see some of these parts. What I'm doing now is painting the decks. The decks here, you'll see that that's kind of complicated. And then I need to cement these little pipes in once the decks are painted, because they'll just be in the way otherwise. And then those need to be touched up. So this is why it takes a long time to get something done, at least for me, is that, the machinery gets painted and the decks get painted, and the decks need 2, sometimes 3 coats, and then the deck paint gets up on the machinery, and then that needs to be touched up, and then the pipes need to be put in, and then after the pipes are put in, they need to be painted because, as you'll see, once they come off the sprue, they have to be sanded and filed, so that takes 2 coats of paint. And in between the coats, it has to dry, and so on and on and on and on. So I'm going to try to be efficient as I can by putting the second coat of paint on these 2 decks. Because once those are done, then I can cement this thing in place. And once that thing's in place, I can fill it in on the bottom and sand it and paint the bottoms of the decks. Why paint the bottoms of the decks? Because when you look at it from the side, you can see the bottoms. Especially the top decks. And then we'll see how it goes. So I'll just keep plugging away at it and try to get as far as I can today. I'll probably be doing some test fitting of this bulkhead and this bulkhead, because when I paint the hull and stuff, there's paint buildup. And sometimes they don't fit, so I have to scrape some of the paint out and shape the parts. This one is sort of installed, but it's not. It's in there too tight, I think. And then I have to make sure the decks fit also. They're supposed to slide in, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So there's just a lot of fiddly stuff that goes on, even though it looks like it's almost done. So the thing about parts search is that the next bit here is the tail of the submarine, and there's a propeller and some dive planes. And I have to find those parts and get them to fit, because there's always like excess plastic, or there's bits of sprue stuck on them, or they just don't fit. So I'll probably work on that after break. These things are supposed to turn, like the vertical and horizontal dive planes move. You know, like planes, and the propeller is supposed to turn. It just gets in there, and they want it lubricated after, well, the propeller and the shaft will need to be painted. Should probably read the instructions to see what order they want these things done. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's kind of weird. They want the shaft installed. Okay. They want the shaft installed and then the propeller put in. But let's see. I want the shaft and the propeller all painted together. So I'm probably not going to follow the directions exactly. Anyway, these are the parts I'm going to try to find and prep. And then there's big pieces. There's the outside hull that's supposed to fold up and cover the submarine on these hinges. It doesn't work really well because the parts aren't put together all that well. But yeah, this is going to be spray painted a dark gray color, and then the base, which is actually kind of important because something has to hold this up, otherwise it just flops around. This base, I need to find these parts and prep them as well, so that they come together and hold this part of the hull up. And I'm not sure what color I'll paint these. I want to spray paint this as well, so I'll either use an airbrush or just, I've got some paint down there. I might just do a glossy black or something. But I'll prime them first. Anyway, yeah, big parts, little parts. This much of the submarine is done so far, from the torpedo room back to the reactor, and I'm just working on these bits back here, and then I'll be doing that. Anyway, yep. So let's see what I've got here. I've got I've got this part which is done. This part which is done is this one here with the, what is this supposed to be? A compressor. It's supposed to be a compressor and a CO2 eliminator. Those are important, compressed air and carbon dioxide eliminator. So those are done, and those go in the lower part of the forward of the two mechanical decks. This one, you can see where I filled in the spots where these were cemented in. Okay, those that needs to be sanded down and painted that dark gray color. So I'll do that in a little bit. The what are these things? Let's see if it tells me. Oh yeah, this is a condenser. This condenses something. I'm not sure what. And then this. Oh, this is the condenser, and that's the air conditioner. Yeah, I've got to keep the thing fresh and clean and clear. Yeah, so I need to remember to sand this down and paint it. I'm going to paint a second coat on these decks first. You can see that there's a first coat on them, but they look kind of, scuzzy looking. They're not really good, but second coat hopefully will be enough. This bit here is that. It goes there. And like I said, if things go mostly okay, I should be able to cement this little bit in here and then put these pipes in. And yeah, that. This is an escape hatch. There's a ladder. I need to paint the ladder. I keep not remembering to paint the ladder. So maybe I'll remember it later. Maybe I'll even look up my color chart and figure out what color it's supposed to be, because there's a standard color that I've been using for ladders. But this is the escape hatch. A little bit with a ladder inside of it. Okay, yeah, so the order of things today is I'm going to paint the second coat on these two bits first. The second is first. And that is because if I need a third coat, the second coat needs to dry, right? And then I'm going to sand down this, which is just sandpaper. And once it's sanded, I'll clean it off and paint this dark gray color, which looks almost the same as the primer. You can hardly tell them apart. And once that's done and dry, then these two will have been completed. These are the lower two decks of the engine rooms, or as I call them, machine room, but they're machines, engines. They're not all engines. Yeah. Putting these little pipes in, these are the little pipes. It's really kind of, I don't know. There's one that I put in already here. They don't really fit very well. They don't go into holes. They don't stretch right. Anyway, it'll be thinking around getting those to work. I kept them on the tree because they're numbered, and the instructions tell me which numbers go where, because even with the pictures, sometimes this looks just like that, except it's reversed. Yeah. This little squiggly bit, the 82 though, is the one that goes directly into the superheated steam that comes out of the heat exchanger that's heated by the reactor. I'm going to paint that red because this is red, and I want to make it look like, that's the input of all of the steam that powers the entire submarine. That one is this bit here. I can tell because it's the only one that's squiggly like that, but also that it's number 82. And can't see anything. No. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So the number 82 is the tag over here, but it's attached over there where number 86 is, but 86 isn't there anymore because it's glued onto that. So this one's going to get painted red. And I'm keeping them on here, but I need to cut them off, and then you can see then there's those little plastic tabs that'll be on there that need to be sanded off. And then I put a single base coat of that beige paint on, but anyway, it'll need at least one, maybe two coats after they're cemented in place. Yeah, I guess I babbled on long enough. Have I used up enough time? Usually, yeah, it's 10:20. That's okay. Usually I like to go on for at least 15 minutes before I start painting. Because what I'd really like to do is call this relaxing talking about, but not really getting around to painting with Dyson Dungeons. What's under here? Oh, okay. These are other parts. These other parts are important. The propeller. There's a story about this, the propeller. And this is the top deck that goes above the missiles that actually gets cemented into the hull of the submarine. Yeah, I'd almost forgotten about those. I can't forget those. Okay, so yeah, second coating these. I'll just keep plugging away at it. Just keep plugging away at it. See how far I get. By the end of this stream, I should be further along than at the start. Sometimes that's pretty much all I'm trying to do here, is that I'll do relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons, and the aim, the thing I'm trying to do is be further along on the completion of the submarine at the end than at the beginning. I think there was one stream when things just went really quite poorly. Sometimes that happens. Things go badly. And I actually kind of ended up definitely not further along at the end than at the beginning. I don't think I went backward, but it came pretty close. So these two decks are pretty straightforward. These things just got cemented into the deck, and there was hardly anything on the deck that needed to be painted around. But for some reason, the upper two decks, everything was molded into the deck. Okay. Why? I don't know. It was molded into the deck. And, oh yeah, I forgot to show that. It was molded into the deck, and these are all fill-ins. This is all stuff that's filled in because there was the negative of this on the bottom, and you can see it. You can see that. I mean, you'll be able to see it when it's in place. And this needs some additional sanding. I'm just going to do that right now because otherwise I'm going to forget. So I'm going to move this out of the way, sort of, sanding things down. This is really fine grit sandpaper. Oh, I know why I didn't bother. Well, maybe, yeah, okay, that's actually filled in. The bottoms of these need to be painted that dark gray color that I've used to paint the deck, the hull that I'm going to be using for the hull. And I haven't done that yet. So that'll be something to do. A thing to do. This one to be smooth, especially because that's kind of up front. It's right near the front. So I was saying last Wednesday that it's almost like these two top decks were designed by a different engineer than these decks, because these decks had parts that were cemented in, and these decks had parts that were molded in. I don't know. I know that these were a lot easier to paint than these. So yeah, I'm going to get the second coat of this on there. I need to remember to paint the bottoms. In the scheme of remembering things, what I actually really should do is like paint the bottoms now. But I'll do this instead. This is supposed to be relaxing painting, so I guess I should, I'll just paint something. Maybe I'll even stay on camera. I might do that just to do it. Just hold the pieces here. Doesn't matter which one I start with, does it? I used a really fine brush last time to paint around all the edges. And like here, I failed. For the most part, it's okay. I'm using a little bigger brush this time because I want the paint to cover. I'm going to be trying to not get right up to the edges. Okay, hoping that the paint right at the edges is okay as it is. So I'm going to be painting up to, but not quite onto the edges. So if this second coat covers enough, it would be really nice if it did. Then I can go ahead and cement this little part in here. Paint the bottoms. Start attaching the pipes. There's a lot. Wow. I don't know how that got messed up. Just touching up on the pipes there's a lot of it. I think I scraped it or scratched it. So I really do not know why. There is a coverage problem on the pipes, but that should be, if I'm, careful in bringing the paint up to and onto the surface, it should be fairly easy to touch that up. There's just a lot of spots. Okay, so generally, or in this case, maybe I should say admirably. No, I shouldn't say that, even though it's, a submarine and not, it's a Navy thing, not a Air Force or Army thing. But generally, start rambling on about something here. 1960s TV or theme songs, stuff like that. I am actually just running out of those things to talk about. Getting into repetition. And one would expect, someone of my age would pretty much just lapse into repetition anyway, just through the normal course of things. Have I told this story before? Oh yeah, about 80 times. Well, let me tell you this story. I think you'll find it really interesting. That kind of thing should be happening anyway. But, I do try to avoid too much repetition. But at some point, one has talked about all of the 1960s television shows, including all the westerns, and, gone over their theme songs and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I guess what I want to do is ramble on about not having anything to ramble on about. Kind of a meta ramble. That's kind of how it should be put, right? It's going to be a meta ramble because I'm rambling on about actually rambling on about failing to ramble. So it's not only rambling about rambling, is rambling about not rambling. It's kind of an inverse meta ramble. Okay, and I stopped that too. That just wasn't effective. Or maybe it was because I was rambling about not having anything to ramble about, and then I stopped because there wasn't even anything to ramble on about not having anything to ramble about. Really starting to get complicated now. One could say that at this point, I could ramble on about Rambo, but I'm going to be very honest. Despite the fact that there were all these Rambo movies and that so many people watch them, I've never watched them. I've seen bits of them, but I've never just sat down and watched an entire Rambo movie. I can't even ramble on about Rambo. You could ramble on about not Rambo. Inverse ramble. Ever. Pieces are not very large. Yeah, I wonder how much progress I'm going to make today. We will see. Everybody will see along with me as I continue to do second coating here. So the second coat on the other one is working pretty well. This might be all we need. Why do I be speaking in a plural? Speaking on behalf of the audience, this might be all that is needed. I'll try to not use a plural or a singular and just talk in the abstraction. This might be enough, but it's too early to tell. Whether more paint is needed on the deck or not. What I do know is that I need something to go on about. Otherwise, you're going to be limited to listening to the music, which is playing. Yeah, that's good. It's a good thing the music is playing because the monologue has really been, it's been lacking the last couple of streams. Yeah, so I'm getting the second coat of this on. Trying to use long brush strokes to minimize I very carefully paint the parts that won't ever show. Get back there. This to dry before I start messing with it too much more. That wasn't too bad. I mean, I didn't make a mess of anything yet. I didn't do an oops. I could talk about the ongoing request for an oops button. 2 oops buttons, actually. I keep saying it, but I don't, I say it during the stream. But then I forget when I, between the stream, when I talk to Alexis, who does most of the stream deck programming, is to put together an oops screen so that when I do something like I, hit something with a brush that I shouldn't, and then paint is splattered where it shouldn't be, or I drop something and can't find it, or I break something or something like that, there's always an opportunity for oopses. So I need to have an illustration, an oops button that I can push, on the stream deck. That would, up on the screen here, instead of this, it would just pop up and go, oops, something clever looking. I'm sure somebody who's artistic, like Nicole maybe, could do that, could do an oops thing. Okay, so what I was thinking of doing was painting the bottom. Oh, I need to sand the bottom of this before I even think about painting it. Because when I get the dark gray paint out, it would make sense to paint the bottoms of these two as well, because it's the same color, right? Okay. So in sanding this, it creates dust. And I learned my lesson last time when I sanded this one, that in order to keep the dust from getting on all the parts that are already painted, is to get out like a paper towel. I have some here. Set it down so that the dust gets on the paper towel, and then I can just make that go away. Rubbing this on the paper. These are cemented on. They should hold really well, but I don't want to put too much pressure on them. Rubbing a flat surface against a flat surface should result in a flat surface, one would think. The gray stuff that you're seeing on the sandpaper is the primer. These were primed, and now that's the primer is coming off because of the sanding the filler. But the gray paint holds really quite well. I can tell by feel whether it's sanded nicely or not. Pretty decent dust on this I'll put away. And then this fine 1600 grit emery will just polish it. Get rid of, not all, but most of the scratch marks from the coarser paper. Use this slightly damp cloth, paper towel to wipe it off. Looks like I didn't get it all over this, which is good. So put that back there. And then this entire paper towel now has, this part is okay. I'm going to use this to clean brushes. This part that doesn't have dust all over it. I like to waste things, even paper towels, whatever. I learned that as a kid. It's like, you use something up, you might not be able to get it again, so I didn't use things up, resulting in not doing things that could have been done, like painting models or something. Okay, so that's done. That means that I can paint the bottom of this. I'm actually going to turn it over to remind me to paint the bottom like this one was painted. So I don't need to turn that over. Let's see. These are almost dry. I'm going to check those out in a bit and see if I need more. And if if the tan color looks okay, I'm going to get the beige out and touch up the pipes and like spots along here that just need some touching up so that it looks good. Yeah, it's still not dry yet. There's variations in the reflectivity of the paint. I think I'm going to put a third coat on it anyway, just on the larger parts of it, just to make sure that the coverage is good, because there's still spots that are spotty. So do a third coat and then do the beige touching up. Okay. And then as that's drying, after that's dry, before I put the pipes on, I'm going to paint the bottoms. So, yeah, that's the sequence of things. Looks like I'm going to just throw this away. Be right back. It was all covered in dust, and I'll probably I'd set it down somewhere, and then it would get all over everything. This won't take very long. It's just some little bits of the decks just need a little bit more of this cork brown paint. I think it would be good to do that. So I go in front here. Getting a lot of shadows from the equipment is casting shadows, so it's kind of hard to tell sometimes if the paint is uneven or if it's just shadows. Well, there was a lack of rambling, something there. That's the kind of thing that causes oops. I don't know if you noticed, but I bumped the brush into the palette here. And that means it's, just probably like 80% of oopses that happen are bringing the brush up to or away from the surface to be painted. It's like, oh, I bring it up too, but I'm not careful, and I bump it into an other colored painted surface, right? Kind of oops, or sometimes yet it's like, oh, I very successfully painted that tiny little bit of something that was really hard to reach, and I was successful at it and didn't get it all over everything, and then as I take the brush away, I'd bang it into something, and then it's a major oops. And those are the kind of oopses that happen, which is why I really need to have an oops button so that I can put on a really cute little oops graphic. The really good part about the oops button is going to be that the Stream Deck is like way over there, and I have to reach over practically everything to reach it. So think about that. So I bump into something or knock something over, and then I have to reach across the entire work surface in order to hit the oops button. It's like one oops leads to another. That's kind of how that'll go. It's kind of looking okay. Stop messing. All right. So those are going to be ready for beige paint touch-up fairly soon. Actually, while I'm waiting for that brown to dry, I could paint the bottoms. Because if I turn them over, kind of like that, you can see that the brown doesn't really touch anything. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself too much, but that would help things move along. So I could use this. This goes really fast. If it goes okay, it goes fast. I can use this big brush. This is, in terms of working on this submarine, a big brush to quickly get gray paint across the surfaces. I have 2 bottles of dark gray paint, and I'm going to use the good one. The other one is drying out a little bit. And I can let this dry, and while this is drying, and do some work on those pipes, maybe. Yeah, or I can paint the ladder. I can find the ladder that goes on the bottom of the escape hatch. Find out what color it needs to be painted by looking up my color chart. And painting it. And then I won't keep forgetting about it. I wonder if I'll remember long enough to do that after I'm done painting the bottoms of these. This is another part of the habit of not wasting things, is using the paint in the top of the cap. Yeah, anyway, that's what that is, using the paint in the top of the cap. Until it's gone, and then using paint from the bottle. This whole bottom, even though it's a little bit rough, was just filled with holes. Great big openings from the injection molding of the parts above it on the top of the deck. Did a pretty good job of filling those in. You're always supposed to paint into the painted surface, but you have to paint to the edge like that, otherwise I get weird paint buildup. Okay, so there. When those are dry, I'll be able to flip them over and touch up the beige. This one will be done. Use the big brush. You can't see it, but the wash water, it holds a lot of paint, and so the wash water gets really pigmented. So I have a second one for the lighter color when I get around to doing that. Things are happening on relaxing painting today. What is... thing? There's one of those little spots that got filled in, and it's near the front where it is visible, which is pretty annoying. Paint into the opening there. That white spot needs to be gray. I get to clean the brush again. Cleaning the brush is much easier than actually applying paint. The only real potential for an oops is like knocking the wash water over. I guess I could, like, theoretically at least drop the paper towel on something and get it wet or knock it over or whatever. But usually not. Usually not that. This needs to dry before I can flip them over and touch up this color. This color is what's next. This is the color of the machinery. But I said I was going to paint the ladder because I just remembered the ladder. And the ladder is in this little container where it hopefully didn't get lost. Didn't get lost yet. There it is. There's another ladder in here, a bigger one. This ladder is supposed to go in the control room where the periscopes and stuff are. And it's supposed to go in after it's all assembled, which it is now. And I have no idea how to get it in. I mean, with tweezers or whatever, I don't know how to get it to where it's supposed to go, so it may end up not being put in. This ladder is supposed to go from the... Yeah, there we are. This ladder is supposed to go from, like, the bottom there. It's supposed to be part of the escape hatch. Climb up the ladder to the escape hatch, like that. So it gets cemented in. It's supposed to be cemented in on the back of this thing, like that. We're right at the bottom. It looks best like it's there. So I might end up just putting it there. And then it's supposed to dangle down to one of these decks. So you can jump on the ladder and climb up. And of course this ladder is molded kind of coarsely in plastic because it can't be done as fine as the impression of the ladder that's on the inside of the... Yeah. So sometimes the detail in this model is amazing and immense, and sometimes it's just dumb. You know? This ladder was painted once, and now it's not painted very well again. There's paint there, so let's see. The color chart's way over there. Excuse me while I wander over to the color chart. Did I not write down? I didn't write down the color of the ladder. All of these colors in, kind of like illegible writing. And I didn't write down the color that I was using for the ladders. Well, I want to take a little piece of paperboard here onto which I can put the ladders, because there's no place to hold them. They have to be painted all the way across, right? And I'm going to use... What color did I paint the torpedoes? Weird that I didn't write that down. I guess it's because they're just so tiny and so pointless. Aluminum. Dark. I'm going to use the dark aluminum because the ladders inside the escape hatches are highlighted in black ink. And will probably be like the very last bottle I look at. Here. Good grief. There it is. I need tiny bits of this. And I'm going to hold it down with a toothpick, I guess. And then just slide it out of the way. Or put it, I guess I'm going to put it back in here somewhere so I don't lose them. It's usually enough paint actually in the bottle cap itself to cover them in paint. Just messing it around, just trying to cover all the surfaces. The back of this is not going to show. At least that's, the way it's supposed to be, because it's near the back of the submarine, or midway back on the deck, and the only one side shows, so there. And then for some reason, the paint on this just isn't very even. Part of it doesn't look to be painted. So if this ever does get installed, and I'm not sure it ever will, like I said, I don't know how to get it to where it's supposed to go. Just really don't know how to do that. But if I do, it'll be nicely painted dark aluminum Why did I say aluminium? Because that's how it's spelled on the bottle. Aluminium. Because, hi, who? Yeah, I will do a flip. This is actually a good time to do a flip. Once I move these things out of the way. Oh my God. How did that get on there? It must have come off the bottle cap. Okay, I'll do a flip after I clean some of this off of my fingers. Good grief. Sometimes I had gone so far without an oops yet. Fortunately, this oops just involves getting paint all over my hands. Well, there's that. I'm going to put this aside. But since I have that aside, I can do a flip of a big thing. Yeah, that's an uh-oh. All I did was open the cap, and somehow it got all over my fingers. I'm gonna have to get an alcohol wipe to get that off. Okay, I haven't flipped this big one in a while, but there's nothing here on the work surface that I know of that I can break. So here we go. 1 sear, 2 sear, 1 not sear, 2 to 2. We broke even. It was 3 to 3, just exactly random of sear and not sear. And then we clean this brush. So, I didn't see you on Monday. You didn't join in. Took a day off because of MLK Day, Martin Luther King Day. I had an abbreviated session. I ended about an hour early, but I painted this robot thing, whatever it was, with like battle damage and leaking oil and rust and junk. And then finished that kind of early and didn't want to do anything else other than base coating a basilisk. Okay, I'm going to set this aside. This is really good. I'm setting all my brushes over there so I reach over things and increase the chances of yet some more oh-ohing. Gigantic gallon bottle of isopropyl alcohol, which is a really good cleaning agent. Use it in the kitchen and all sorts of things for disinfecting. You can get like a gallon of it for almost less than you can get for 8 ounces of it. Did it get... The under part of my thumbnail is like going to be permanently duraluminum. Yep, I haven't flipped sear in quite a while, because usually there's junk all over the place up here. Now my thumbnail is now like semi-permanently painted in. It got way underneath the nail. I do not understand how that happened. No, who cares, you know? Just say it's a bad manicure or something. Get these parts back here. So I'm moving along. I will be moving along. What's in here? There's nothing. What's left in here is a chair. Okay. So once these are dry, and they're not quite dry yet, I can tell because there's some variation in the color, I'll flip them back over, like this one's flipped. And then I'm going to pull out the bone white paint and do touching up. It looks like a little touch up on the pipe here. These need a fair amount of touching up. And once those are touched up, then I will... Oh, I need to cement this in. I almost forgot about that part. For some reason, there's just one part that needs to be cemented. I'm going to do that before the touching up. And then do the touching up. And then start installing some pipes. Well, while I'm waiting for that to dry, this one pipe is going to be painted red. And although I'm going to end up having to put like 2 more coats of red on it before it's done, I can at least get a base coat on it. It'll help. It'll just move things along, and also put paint in parts where it's going to be really hard to touch it up later. And this one's getting painted red because it is the pipe that comes directly out of the reactor room. And all of those pipes are painted red. Like I said, this will have to be touched up because I have to pull it off of the sprue here. Right? And that'll have to be filed and sanded. It needs to be cemented in place, and so that requires yet probably more manipulation. But if it's painted red now, I don't have to try to remember to paint it red later, and putting a second coat on will just be easier than trying to paint this once it's cemented in place, which would be really hard to do actually without getting red paint on surfaces where I don't want it. There. So now there's a red pipe. What are we doing? It's a little after 11. Okay, I'm going to cement that bit onto the deck where it belongs. There. It's safe to turn these over now. They're pretty dry. This thing goes here, like this, and it needs to be put in place because there's a pipe that goes across, and it crosses over this other pipe, and that needs to be touched up. Touching. Decide where to put the cement. I'm going to put it on the back part here and a little bit on that, and then I'm going to try to avoid putting it there because it's going to melt the paint, but I'm just going to put it in the back edge, which will also melt the paint in the back, but it won't show that much. I'm always afraid that I'm going to have like a gigantic super oops by knocking over the cement bottle. That would be quite a thing, wouldn't it? That'd be quite a thing to see. No, it's not so much knocking it over, it's knocking it over while it's open. I'm just going to press down on this for like a couple of, like 30 some seconds or so, and that should be enough to have it hold. And if it holds and doesn't look like it's not making a mess, that's good. Here's the color I'll be using. Ah, nice. Nicely done. I very carefully put this here so that these could dry. And as I flipped it, oh, there it is. Okay. I thought I had lost the ladder altogether. Get rid of that. Knocked this over twice. Those were fortunately little inconsequential oopses. I'll give this like another 15 seconds or so, and that should be enough to hold it in place. Yeah, it's sticking. So, before I start doing touch-up, which I'll be using my head magnifier for, that's always exciting to put that thing on my head. It's got a little light on it and 2x magnifiers. I'm going to need that for touching up so that I can see where the paint is supposed to go. And hopefully my hand will hold still and steady enough to actually make the paint go where it's supposed to go. I doubt if that's the case or not. Then maybe should I wait to do the touching up for after the pipes are put in? No, I can't, because sometimes I have to do some touching up under where the pipes go. So I'll be touching up and then installing the pipes and then touching up again. But, whatever. I'm going to take a few minutes now to talk about what happens after this. Because as you can see, I am now on stage step 8 of 9. 9 is final assembly, so I'm on step 8, which means I have done step 1 through 7, believe it or not, with a little bit of an exception, like I haven't cemented this deck into the hull yet. I should do that, but I'll do that some other time. I've actually completed 7 out of 9 steps, which means I am, it is the best number. It is the best number, and it's the final number. Isn't that a great coincidence? So once these are done and installed into the submarine, which will happen eventually, it's almost inevitable. What happens after that, right? So I'll probably still call it. I've been thinking about it, still calling it Submarine Wednesday. I have been going through, and I'm glad Who is here, because Who has an opinion and will express it, is what will I work on next? Sometime after July 4th, when this might be done. And so I have some other models to show you that several of them have made the first cut. The ones that have not is the gigantic fiber optic lit Deep Space Nine model, which would be something like 18 inches in diameter, and decided not to do that for 2 reasons. One is that it's still in the original shrink wrap and it might have collector value. I need to find out. Maybe I'll resell it and become rich. And the other is that if I built it, where would it go? I mean, it's even bigger and clumsier than the submarine hull, and it will be an amazing dust collector. And there would be, unless I put it in some sort of gigantic display case, which would be too expensive and silly. Anyway, not yet. That's not yet happening. Also decided against the Lamborghini Aventador Super Veloce, even though it's a really cool car and I was going to paint it metallic purple. Also not yet, because 2 other models beat it out. One of them is, I know this is Who's favorite, and it's kind of in the lead right now, is Porco Rossa's Savoia S21, which is a really cool model. If it were built by a good modeler, it would look like this, and it actually, the top of it comes off and you can see the detail on the inside. So and it even comes with a Porco, which could be, I probably could paint it to look like this, and I could probably pull that off. So this is definitely in the running. This one is hard to show because it's a really big box. It's a large scale, 1/16 scale Corvette convertible, which has all sorts of really beautiful chrome parts and stuff, and would require very high skill in terms of assembly and painting. But it is a really cool model. It has little lights, little incandescent rice bulbs. Probably could replace those with little LEDs, I'm not sure, for headlights and taillights. And I think the suspension kind of works. It's really a really neat model. Probably take the better part of 2 years to build, and who knows how it would turn out. So then I pulled out 3 other models, some of which put automotive lights in, yeah. One of which will probably not be built, but some are in the running. This one is weird, okay? This is a model of the Lockheed SR-91 Aurora. And you'll say, what in the heck is an SR-91 Aurora? I've never heard of that. Well, actually, you probably had if you'd been around for a while, because maybe 20 years ago or so, there were rumors that there was a successor to the SR-71 Blackbird that was even faster and flew higher. It was almost like Mach 5 or something, and they called it the Aurora. And the rumor was that there was this triangular-shaped plane that kept flying out of Area 51. So the Sci-Fi Dynamics, okay, so they're not claiming it's real, made a tiny little 1/44th scale model of this plane that may or may not have ever really existed. And I couldn't resist buying it because, you know, it's the Aurora, right? So it's not a very well produced, it's not very well produced model, okay? It's got parts like this in it that, you know, they'd go together and could be painted, but I thought I'd bring this out, if nothing else, just to show you this. And then those of you who want to can look up the Aurora project or the Aurora plane on the internet, and I think there's like a Wikipedia article or something about it that talks about, well, maybe it existed, but probably not. Yeah, like military fan fiction. It was never confirmed or denied, okay, which is pretty cool. Anyway, there's a model of it, whether it existed or not. This other model is another one. This is like the submarine. I built one of these when I was in grade school or early high school. This is the 1965 Lotus Ford that won the Indianapolis 500. It was the second year that rear-engine cars ran at Indianapolis, and it won. And then after that, rear-engine cars with Ford engines, believe it or not, started dominating big car racing, which has evolved into IndyCar and stuff. This is actually a pretty good model. It's 1/25th scale, which is standard for, you know, automobiles. It's still, this is a real vintage model. It's not a reproduced one, so it cost $3.77 when it was first produced, and you can see it. And then it was sold for $10. I don't know if I bought it. I think I paid like $8.50 or something for it. But yeah, it's got its original price tag. I think now you can sell these for like 20 some bucks or whatever. But I really like this car, and what's neat about it is that the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, which is not too terribly, you know, it's like a 3-hour drive away, has the original. This car is there. And I have some pictures of it taken with a Polaroid camera, which tells you how long ago that was. Okay. And so I can see how it really looked, and you can see that there are some significant differences between the model and the real thing, one of which is the exhaust, which in the real car was painted yellow, the same color as the stripe, not chrome. So if I were to ever build this model, that would be painted yellow. And the interior is not green with the yellow stripe. It doesn't continue the color scheme of the model. It is like a brown leather. Okay. And I got some pictures of the interior with the dashboard such as it is, you know, and the bare aluminum on the inside. So, yeah. So the model is pretty close to, but not exactly like the original. But it's, anyway, like I said, I built that when I was a kid too. And so this is, I think, the end of running. Yeah. Antique history. And then the last one that's still in the running is, and I have to look this up on eBay too to see if it's a valuable sort of thing, is the USS Enterprise Command Bridge. Okay, of the original Enterprise. And this was made, you can see when it was made, right? It was made like in the late 60s. And when I look at this, I keep saying, every time I look at this, I say, if this were to ever be opened up and looking at the parts, you could see there would be red parts and black parts and blue parts. They would all be very, very cheaply manufactured. And I think that even if you look at the cover art, which usually makes a model look really good, it looks really pretty crummy. It's like sharp edges on all of the furniture, and the control panels, I'm guessing, are stickers, like there are real stickers, and they might still stick, I don't know, to go on that, on all of these surfaces to make it look like it. I think this would be kind of a fun thing to build. I bet it even comes with Kirk and Sulu and Spock. I don't know if it's maybe just those three, but there are probably figures, little mini figs essentially, of these guys in there. I don't know. I hope they're not as wrinkly as this. I mean, good grief. Talk about something. Get a shirt that fits. Really? Look at them all. No, it's like their laundry or their tailoring or something. Just all clumped up and wrinkly. Anyway, I'd say this is in the running. So I'm looking for feedback. Otherwise, I'll just make my own selections to keep narrowing it down. Yeah, I'm not sure which ones I'll reject, but eventually I'm going to have to pick one, and that one will be the next one that would be worked on. I'm not going to say built, I'm just going to say worked on after the submarine is finished sometime during 2024. I'm hedging my bets even more and more. It was, this will be done by the end of the first quarter, the end of March. Now this will be done by July 4th. And now I'm just saying this will almost certainly be finished during this calendar year. Almost certainly. I didn't say it certainly will. What's the next step? Oh yeah, touching up. I'm going to do some touching up on these bits where either the paint isn't covering quite well enough, or where the brown paint had gotten onto where the beige paint is supposed to be instead. And get this stirred up. We are really good at deadlines. We know better than to say there's a deadline. What we know better is to say, I'll keep working at this. I mean, look, these used to be just little pieces of gray plastic, that I fished out of a box. And now they look like pieces of beige and brown plastic. So this is the part where I'm going to try to avoid an oops. What I do not want to do is get this beige paint onto the tan paint, because I don't want to have to come back and touch up in the other direction. See how that goes. Yeah, not really sure how it'll go. I will get this really nice fine pointed brush here. Get my paint thing here. And if I'm hopefully battery will hold up on this long. Head magnifier on. Dot of paint put into palette. Brush uncorked. So, like here, there's brown paint way up there. Why? I don't know. It went there. Wasn't supposed to, but it did. Down here, it's tiny. I don't know why the tops of these pipes, I put like 2 or 3 coats on them, but they're still not very well covered. Yeah, I have to stop chatting when I'm doing this kind of stuff. It's like walking and chewing gum at the same time. Joke about the tube. I can't do this kind of touch-up and chat nonsensically at the same time. You have to listen to the music, which is playing. Yay. Redefine some of these edges. Get the tops of the pipes looking good. Oh, that was almost an oops. Really should redefine this line. I don't know. This is taking a chance here. It's better than it was, so sometimes I need to learn to just leave it. To get from this looks okay to, oh, it looks amazing, and then it just looks terrible because things happen.
Okay. Discover the sections, whole sections that didn't get painted. Like I just missed them. Doesn't make it perfect, but it's like almost like it just got missed. Especially these sides here. Using the side of the brush like that is not a good thing, but okay. So this is looking okay now. I'll just leave it be. Everything looks so much better not magnified 2 times. Just have to say that. Oh man, that part was supposed to have been cemented in, and it was, but it didn't hold, so I'll have to do it again. Fortunately, it didn't hurt anything. Didn't expect that to happen. At least that's something that I probably, I'm not going to forget, because it's a part that needs to be attached that isn't attached. That, I don't know if these need much touching up. These were mainly cemented in. This touching up is being done, and now it looks okay. we got it so that it looks, I got it so it looks okay. I need to cement this thing back on again, and then need to then work on the pipes. And this needs to be cemented in to do that because one of the pipes actually connects to it. I can work on this deck, these two pipes at least, before working on the one where the thing was supposed to be cemented in and it didn't hold. Part of it is because it's cemented onto paint, you know, and it dissolves the paint and it doesn't dissolve the plastic, but it's going to have to be that way. Once it's installed in the submarine, it'll be okay. But so let's set this aside and take these off. Again, pull out the cement and the part where it goes. Sparingly apply little bits of it. Apply just little bits of it to the surfaces where they're supposed to stick. Okay, so I'm putting it on the back for the most part. I don't want it to mess up the paint on the front. Put a pin in the little hole. And hold it there for, I don't know, a while. So after this is held in place for a while, I'm going to find the pipes that go here and here, here and here, and try to get those installed. This is the one that's red. This one goes in later, and actually is supposed to come up from the top of this and go into the bulkhead that's here. I'm going to bet like there's a 1 out of 10 chance that that's actually going to fit, but you know, it might. We'll see how it goes. Holding this in place for a little while to hopefully get the cement to dissolve through whatever it needs to dissolve through and weld this part onto the deck. I have not used very much cement on this. Everything I've installed in the hull so far is just friction held. So if necessary, I could actually disassemble this whole thing and redo it. I'm not going to do that though. Hopefully that will just stick now. Find out. Okay, so here, number 80 goes from here to here, up in the front here, and number 81 goes from the top of this to the back of that. Let's, I don't know, let's find it. Maybe 81. 80 and 80. 90? Oh, 90 is on the other one. There's 80. That's 81. I'm going to do 81. And I need to, first of all, cut it. 81. That's 81. This one. Cut it off with a sprue, but leave some plastic on the pipe so that I don't end up with a divot on the pipe that has to somehow be filled and sanded. If I leave plastic on the pipe, I can sand it, file it, and sand it down to the surface of the pipe. and have a nice smooth top of the pipe. Amazingly not sharp X-Acto knives. Should really get better modeling tools. I should get like little jeweler saws. If anybody, watches this stream, you know that Ole Brager, who lives in Denmark and is probably now caught in this latest winter storm that hit there. He just dug out of like a foot of snow or something last week or the week before. Now they hit another storm. It's almost like living here, where we had like 18 inches of snow over the last week. Yeah, I really should get better modeling tools. I've got some nice needle files. Those are really good. I use those a lot. But like cutting tools. Because it'd be nice to have a saw that was as wide as the blade of the X-Acto knife to be able to cut this off and not have to worry about breaking it, by chipping away at it like this. Maybe I'll get one of those for my birthday. It'll be my birthday gift to me, is getting a jeweler saw. Especially if I'm building these other models, like maybe the Porco Rosso one. Those pieces are thin. Okay, the plastic is fairly thin on them compared to these, which, even though they're poorly molded, are at least thick. Wow. This is really dumb. But it's filling the time. There we go. And I didn't mess anything up. Needle file out. First thing to do is get rid of that little bit of plastic that's sticking out of the top there. You kind of see that. And just it is nice and you can always tell by touching. Even more easily, at least for me, it's easier to tell if it's smooth by touching it than looking at it. These pipes shouldn't have little nubbins of plastic on them, so that's why I'm filing it off. And you can see the paint is coming off as well, but that 2 more coats of beige paint and that'll be fine. That'll do. Let me see now if I can actually get this to fit. It's rotating. So it's supposed to go like that, and it looks like it does. Doesn't go very far into those little divots. Now I'm going to take some of the, just right on the very, very edges here. I'll be painting these I'll be putting paint around the bottoms of these pipes so that there's not a gap, right? So the gap that these might go into will just be filled with this beige paint. But the paint buildup on there just is probably enough to keep it from going into the little hole where it's supposed to go. painting this at all to begin with. I don't know. Now that I look at it, it's like, why did I bother painting this at all? Probably just so that I could spend some time cleaning the paint off. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but it wasn't. I'm sure everybody has some of that. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but then it wasn't. The thing I'm finding building this, and it'll probably be even more so on some of the other models, is although my hand seems to be steady enough to do detail painting at least adequately, it's not very good at holding these things, these little parts. So that pipe goes like that, and it's supposed to get cemented in, and then I will put paint. You can see that there's a little gap there. You can see there's a hole. So just when I repaint the pipe, paint will also go on that surface and fill in that hole. Okay, so that's okay. What number is this? This is supposed to be number 80. I'm guessing this is 80. This is 80. So I'm doing the same thing to here as I did to that, which is taking it off. Do an arduous process of, I wish I had a saw, but I don't, so I'll just keep plugging away at it with the X-Acto knife here. Filing it down so that it is a smooth surface. Getting the paint off the edges and fitting it to the hole. Okay, well, that came off. Now I need to clean that up. And then see if I can get this one to fit. It's on the bottom of the pipe this time instead of the top. But that's okay. It's way up here, so I should be able to get a brush underneath without oopsing too much on anything else. I'm going to fit all 4 pipes before I cement them in. So that just, rather than cementing these 2 in and then fitting the other 2. Mess around with those pipes and then take a break and start the break a little bit late. I might do that. I don't know. I suppose it much matters if I work on these things before or after break. this one to fit anyway. When I built some of these models, especially when I was building the Fink models, which I talked about before, you had big Daddy Roth Fink models. You know, when you put things together, there's always the seams show. There, that pipe fits pretty well. That goes. It's okay. Seams always show, and I didn't have any filler then. So I actually used to just glob paint onto them to fill in the seams. Okay, so that's what it looks like with the pipes in. I need to cement those in and then paint it over. But I'm going to get these, get the cement out. I'll do all 4 of these at once. This one, this hole here is this is the one that I just cemented in. Lovely. Really, it's either totally paint filled or it's much smaller than the others. So it's be a challenge. Let's see. That's supposed to be 91. This one. This doesn't look right. This one goes here. And this one goes there. The numbers are actually wrong. Oh, okay. That's the number there. The number for this one is here. Got it. Okay. Yeah. I don't make anything easy on this. Little number tags are not like where it's attached. The number tag is on the other side of the attachment. So that happened once before, and now it's happened again. Yep, popped off and didn't fall on the floor and didn't get lost. That was an amazing turn of events that it didn't fall on the floor and get lost. Okay, yeah, I haven't rambled on about much of anything today, so the monologue, I think, the monologues have been very weak over the last maybe 4 or 5 streams. You know, the Mr. Ed one wasn't bad, but it didn't last very long. It's like not too much one can say other than complain about the really crummy lyric writing where horse and horse are rhymed like over and over again, and there's only one plot where Mr. Ed says something that's insulting to the neighbor, and Wilbur gets blamed for it because he can't say that the horse said it because, you know, that wouldn't play well. Yeah, it's a kind of, you know, looking back at TV back then, so much of it, well, on and on, everything was always the same. Like Mission Impossible, you know. Somebody always wore a rubber face and impersonated someone else, even though that wouldn't work. I mean, even though that disguise technique really, in real life, would not work. But, you know, it was always the reveal at the end, or Perry Mason, where somebody just always confesses right there in the courtroom, which never happens. Especially when the person who confesses wasn't even a suspect, really, to begin with. But some of those shows could go on for like 6 seasons or 7 seasons, just basically having the same episode over and over again. This one to fit, then I've only got one more to do. That last one is going to be the hardest one because this hole is too small. And it's on a part that is difficult to work with. Let's see if this will fit. Tweezers here. Especially fun when there's cement on the parts, right? There. So that's how that thing goes. I guess that'll do. Doesn't look terrific, but you know, it's just the way it is. Be nice if this went in deeper. Maybe I can clean some of this out. This so it fits into that hole a little further so that the pipe lays a little bit more horizontal rather than diagonal. This whole model has been like this, where the parts just aren't molded very well. They've got mold marks, they don't fit. Yeah, just end up with spending time doing that kind of manipulation. There, it fits a little better. Now this last one goes across. Yeah, let's see. Oh well, that's going to cooperate. And the red one goes here, and that goes to the reactor room. One aside. Down with the others. A little ridge. Holding process. Once these pipes are in place, maybe after the break, we'll get the hull of the submarine out and do some, see if they fit, after I touch up the pipes. I mean, for all I know, I can assemble, maybe this whole thing will get assembled. It might. That would be pretty nice if it did. Sometimes so far with the assembly, it has been going okay. Not terrific, but okay. All I would ask for at this point is that the assembly of this goes okay. And then I can start looking for the parts for the back of the submarine, the dive planes and the propeller. I need to repair the propeller because the propeller on all three of the kits that I purchased were broken in the same way. And it had to do with the way they were molded on the sprue and people's impatience in, for some reason, thinking that they wanted to take them off when they didn't need to come off until the very end. It's one of the last parts that go onto the submarine. Okay, so as I can see, this hole here is small, and so this part here will require a little more filing down than the others have in order to make it fit. Definitely time for a break. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to wait to cement these in until after the break because I need to take a break. I need to get some blood sugar. I need to get something to eat. Yeah, this kind of thing, filing these down and getting them to fit in place, that can happen. The chances of having a significant oops are fairly small, but when messing around with the plastics model cement, there is an opportunity there for a major oops. I would like that to happen when I'm a little bit more focused. Okay, let me see. Let me see if this will fit. Pretty close. Might actually be okay. Well, yeah, the other one just popped out. I'm going to take a little of this paint off here so that the cement will adhere there. It's important for the cement to adhere there. Let me cement this one in first because, yeah, it's like I set it down there. Okay. Hasn't popped off yet. So these now have pipes. Okay, and after break, I'll still need this. I might need this. I won't need this. So I keep those out. After break, I'm going to cement those in place. And after the cement has set for just a bit, settled in, I am then going to do touch-up painting on all of them. And once this touch-up painting is done, just doing the top of this, there's a mold, like a flashing or something across the top of this one that is most difficult to put on. So once the touch-up painting is done, I'll pull the red one out, make sure it fits into there, and then get the hull of the submarine out so you'll be able to see what's completed already, and do some test fitting. And if the test fitting actually works, I might be able to assemble this last part, all except maybe for the escape hatch. And I think I'll probably cement the ladder onto the escape hatch while I'm at it. Why not? So there, I'm just going to leave these here for now. This is the cement I will be using. This is the toothpick I will be using to apply the cement. This is the toothpick I will use instead of this I'll use the toothpick that seems to work. I'm going to be trying to get the cement into the holes, okay, without getting it all over the tops of these things. But time for a break. Be back in about half an hour, more or less. Finishing up these decks, which now look like something. Cleaning things up here so that there's room, and then doing see what it takes to get these parts to fit into where they're supposed to be. Yeah. And then that will be the engine rooms. And depending on how that goes, I will start trying to find and prep for priming. Find and prep for priming the parts that go here for final assembly. I can find this. That's really easy to find because it's like 2 feet long. And these parts, I know where they are. These parts I'll need to find and put them in the box here so that they don't disappear. Oh yeah, I can't forget these little fins on the side. There's little dive planes up on the sail of the submarine as well. I need to find those and prep them. And then there's the missile. I might try to find the missile. Anyway, let me cover these up for now, and I will be back in, like I said, about a half an hour and get those pipes in place. So thanks for watching so far, and we'll see you in a bit. Back from break. Oh, wow. Okay. The clock down here is running fast. Or my break went long. I'm not sure which. I thought I would be back a little sooner than I was, but I wasn't. Okay. The task before me now is to cement these pipes into place without making a huge mess. Start with this one. And the process I'm going to use is to use this toothpick and get the cement into these openings, these holes. If it's on here, then the pipe, at least theoretically, will push it down into the hole and not have it like beat up around the top. See if some of that actually got in there. Pipe is, there it is, it's there. And try to do the same thing here. It's really hard to see whether any cement is actually getting to where I want it to go or not. So there's a sort of a tendency to end up having too much rather than too little. Okay, well, hopefully that will stay like that, and that will stay like that. They're pretty vertical. And then we'll deal with the, I'll do the last one last, the difficult one last. And I'll be painting those, to touch up the paint. To fill in the cracks around the openings around the bottoms of the pipes. This one's just kind of a pain in the butt here. Thing. Cement is the ladder on the bottom here. This ladder is supposed to be like a continuation, It's supposed to be cemented to the 78. Ladder to back half of escape hatch. I think like right here. I think it's supposed to go like there. They say back half of the escape hatch. I mean, that's all there is the back half. There isn't any front half. seems to fit into that gap. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Is this going to climb up to there and then escape? Keep bumping it. Keep bumping it with my fingers so that it keeps moving around. Okay, I think it's okay if it leans forward just a little bit. And hopefully it will fit where it needs to fit when it comes time for it to fit into the hull of the submarine, and the ladder is supposed to be just above the where does it go? Like here. And it'll be behind there somewhere. Try to do this. I should have done this before, but I didn't. Okay, so those are now mostly excuse me, mostly complete. I just need to repaint the pipes in a bit. I'm going to fit this red one into place. It needs to go. I just want to make sure it fits into that hole. And that has to be done anyway, and I will end up storing it in here because that's how it's going to get lost. And after I get this to fit, more or less, I'm going to then paint those other pipes. There. There's nothing left on here. This is now trash. And this is red because it leads directly from the red pipe. If you can see the instructions, up here is the pipe that comes off of the top of the heat exchanger and goes into this bulkhead. That's red. And this is a continuation of that pipe. I'm painting it red to, emphasize that it's a continuation of that pipe. And then I will, I'm going to paint this red again. Because once this is in place, it's going to be next to impossible to paint this. So I'm going to kind of just hold it here, maybe with an alligator clip, and make sure that the end is painted. I can touch this up pretty easily, but this part here, where it goes into the bulkhead, is going to be very hard to touch up. And that's going to fit fine. I'm going to grab an alligator clip and hold it in the place where touching up is possible. Okay? Touching up is possible here on the top, but not so much on the ends. Now I put another coat of red paint on that before I paint these. I'm having post-break nasal drip. I swear it feels 5 degrees colder down here after break than it does before the break. I don't know why.
but it does. I can use that brush. That's another. Looking for kind of a larger bristled but not very good brush. Grab this red paint again. Maybe I can get some of these things out of the way. Well, I'm not using them. Just, just to pretend I'm keeping my work surface clear. Not really doing it, but just, acting like I am. And then I have this handy, beat up, terrible mess chunk of wood here that holds alligator clips. So it's going to hold this one. And then I'll put it over here, so in case it pops out, there's a chance I can find it. This will be painted nice and red, except for the part where the alligator clip is. That will be painted nice and red after it is installed somehow into the submarine. Because it's supposed to attach there, but it's also supposed to go to a hole in the bulkhead, so I can't really put it in until this is put into the hull of the submarine. Put this over here where it's safe. Into the bottoms of these. That's good. There's dust on them. Plastic dust from the filing and sanding that I did. Nice. Yeah, and then I need to get this paint. This is the one. Touching up these pipes. So using the paint to kind of fill in the space where they attach to the machinery. Silly little gap there, but it looks like the pipes are neatly fit. They're fit into the openings. Let that dry and find out if I need to put another coat on or not. That is a decision that will be made after the paint dries.
I really do need something to go on about, though. I don't have anything to go on about when I'm doing this. I could do a repeat of Nuclear Armageddon and what that felt like in the 1960s when this was being built. So this was built for both strategic and political reasons. When this was originally built in the 1960s as the prototype sea-launched ballistic missile launching submarine, the first one to do that, the delivery of nuclear weapons was a monopoly for the Air Force. The Strategic Air Command had both the bombers, the manned bomber kinds of things like the B-36 initially. Well, actually, initially it was the B-29, like the one that dropped the first atomic bombs, and those were upgraded into B-50s, which had a little more power and could carry bigger bombs. Ones that we dropped on Japan were actually kind of little puny bombs. Hate to say it that way, but they were, given what was coming next. I mean, when you think about the destruction that those caused, and to think that those bombs that size were kind of downgraded to tactical nuclear weapons that would be used on a battlefield. Pretty scary. At any rate, so the Air Force had a monopoly with those bombers, and then the jets came out later, the B-47, and then that didn't really have enough range. It was kind of like an interim step before the B-52 came out, which is still in service, believe it or not, after like 70 years, maybe longer. It's been, 70 years, I think. And they had the missiles, and missiles back then were, they didn't have much range, and finally they had intercontinental ballistic missiles that could carry things all the way from North Dakota's missile silos to the Soviet Union. And they were called ballistic missiles. I'm going to go off on this, because what it means is that they were unguided. They were just ballistic. They were like firing a shell from a cannon. The missile went up, and you aimed it where you wanted it to go, and you tried to plan the trajectory out of the atmosphere and then back in the atmosphere. So those were ballistic missiles. Now they're guided missiles and guided warheads, and so they're technically not really ballistic anymore. I mean, kind of, but they're beyond just ballistic in the traditional sense of the word. So in the news, they use ballistic missiles kind of inappropriately, but they use guided missiles inappropriately too. They talked about guided missiles when some of the rockets that are being fired in the Middle East now are not guided. They really are just ballistic. They just shoot up there and land somewhere without any change in trajectory along the way. Anyway, that's my rant about why can't the newscasters get the difference between ballistic and guided correct. Anyway, the Air Force, the pipe still has a seam across the top, as does this one. And this one, it's where the two halves of the mold did not come together very well. And I didn't see that before, but now that it's painted, it's pretty obvious that it has a seam. So I'm going to have to I'm going to try to file that off. I'm going to wait for the paint to dry a little bit and then try to do it without breaking without disassembling it. But that's really pipes don't have lines across the top of them where the two halves of the pipe meet. And this one really does, kind of badly. You'd be looking at it from the side. I'm not sure it would show a lot, but I can see it. When I can see it in the light like this, I know it's pretty bad. And this one does the same. The downside of this is that it's going to get crappy little paint dust on the floor. And unless I can brush it off, I'll have to do some paint touch-up. Yeah, but I can't. We can't let that stay. I'll come back to that in a bit. These two are okay, though. Pretty much. They're pretty much okay. And I think, I'm not sure I need any more paint on. Maybe little bits. Maybe just a little bit of touch-up. But those are going to require some work. This is why this model ends up taking forever to build, because then I see flaws like this, which will probably be invisible. I'll just admit it. That I should have caught before I painted them. I should have caught it before I cemented them in, but they weren't really obvious until the paint went on. Okay, well, this is done. So 3 out of 4 are done, and this one will be done once I fix those. Well, I think what I'm going to do is, because I'm waiting for this to dry enough to try to clean up the flaws on the molding flaws. I don't know if you can see it that well, but when these were molded, the two halves of the mold came together and they didn't match up, so that there's this line down the middle of the pipes right across the top. Now, where one side is ever so slightly higher than the other. I'm not sure what kind of mess this will make when I try to fix that, but I'll find out later. But while I'm waiting for that paint to dry enough to try to do that, to fix that, I am going to these here so they're out of the way, because I will need room for parts. So they're going to be done. This one has to be fixed. This goes back in here. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of disappointing. I was hoping to get these done, but that I can't let that go. But in the meantime, what I can do is I can fish, and I have to do this anyway, regardless of whether I do it on this stream or the next one, is find these parts and prep them so that they can be primed. These are easy because they're huge, okay? And the main thing there is getting those prepped. I think I'll just do that first. I'll get the hull and these stands down, and what I mean by prepping them is that there's little protuberances where they were attached to the trees that need to be sanded and filed and sanded. The inside of this hull has a mysterious blob. I don't know what's up with that. These I haven't really looked at yet, so they need some cleaning up, and then the parts need to fit together. And then this stuff I'll find, and the propeller needs to be repaired because it's broken. So let me just get these big parts done first. Well, I'm waiting for that paint to dry, and by the time I'm done with those big parts, the paint will be dry, and I'll be able to work up the rest of it. Wondering what's happening, I'm going to get one over here getting the big parts. This is the box that shows sort of what the submarine looks like, and it actually looks kind of like that. Okay, the parts I'm working on are these back here. The parts that need to be yet done are this bit back here, and the nose cone. So the parts, this is half of the stand. It's starting to be easy to find the parts because there aren't very many parts left in the box. That's the other half of the stand, and this is the hull. So, I mean, if you look at it, you can see, like, here's one of the fins, and there's part of the tail fin there and there. The blade of the propeller is in this box, as is the shaft of the propeller. So, and here's the nose cone. So those are the pieces I'm going to work on. The rest of this is just like sprue. Oops. Keep stacking things up here until they're far enough up that they'll fall. So if you look at this is supposed to fit into the stand with these hinges and fold down and fold back up again. It doesn't fold up. It doesn't really match very well. But, you know, it is what it is. So the thing that needs to be done on here is, like you can see here, like that, the sprue is attached there, and that needs to be filed off. And then here around the hinges, you can see clearly where the two halves of the mold didn't fit, and there's this line between the parts. And so that just needs to be filed off so that the parts actually fit with each other. I mean, not the parts fit with each other, but that the two halves look like it's just a single piece. You can see how far apart they were here. There's probably like, well, I don't know, like almost a 64th of an inch off between one half and the other. Just amazingly poorly done. The molding. Some parts of the submarine were very, very badly done. These are not good. And it's more than just aesthetics. The hinge isn't going to fit if it's badly done like that. Yeah, it's off camera, isn't it? I'm going to just move the camera because I need to kind of brace it up like this. You can always tell when it's even because the whole thing is a uniform color, and you can't see the line between the two halves. I can still feel it though. Very, very badly done. This one actually broke off. The whole hinge broke off. Whoever took this apart, when they messed around with the pieces, decided it'd be great fun to just break off the hinge. They probably like test fit it into the base, and it didn't fit, and it jammed, and they just forced it. I'm guessing that's what happened. When I test fit it, I'm not going to force it. I did break some pieces, some pins off of a piece, so doing that with one of the pieces of machinery in the machine room, in the engine room. There's a pin that went into a slot, and it was really tight fit, and I forced it, and I tried to pull it back out, and when I pulled it back out, it snapped off. But I was able to repair it. This is another reason why this submarine takes so long to build is because the parts suck. I'm doing this at kind of, which is, scratches the plastic, but this is all going to be painted over. After I file this down, I'll polish it. Looks like there's a tiny indentation that technically should be filled in a little bit. It's like a little divot there where the plastic broke off into the hull. And I might do that, just to make sure it looks okay. After I get these parts to not look all too, once I get them to not have protuberances and mold marks and junk like that, I'll do a test fit, and you can see how the hull is theoretically supposed to fold up and down. By memory flaw, and it doesn't polish it perfectly, but it polishes it pretty well, so after it's painted it doesn't show. Let's see how well the cement holds here as I clean this up. Because this has the same issue of the molds didn't fit together. So one part is higher than the other part. They don't match. The parts don't match. By doing this, they come closer to matching. Really important. And these little pins are the things that fit into the hinge. And this is probably how this got broken, is that because these the mold didn't match here. The pin was too big and probably bound up inside when they did a test fitting with the stand, and it just snapped off when they forced it. I mean the people who had this model before I did. And there are probably a couple of owners. I'm sure it's changed hands several times before it ended up here actually being built. This one's really a mess here. There's a big blob there that is not part of the original design of the submarine. Oh yeah, I was saying that the Air Force had a monopoly on the atomic and then later thermonuclear weapons because they had the bombers and the missiles. Eventually, the ICBMs, the liquid-fueled missiles, the Atlas, that was the first ICBM, and then the Titan, which was a little more powerful, that carried a bigger warhead. And then they went to, those were liquid-fueled. And so in the missile silos, they had to have big tanks of like liquid oxygen, except for the Titan. It didn't have liquid oxygen. It had some other mix of chemicals that were incredibly toxic. I can't remember exactly what they were. You can look them up if you want. But the liquid fuel in the Titan missile was like ignited on contact, right? So it wasn't liquid oxygen and kerosene. It was something else, and it was nasty stuff. The Atlas is what they ended up using to launch the Mercury capsules into orbit, and the Titan did the Gemini because the Titan was more powerful. But neither of them, both of those are retired as intercontinental ballistic missiles because they were replaced with a solid fueled missile. I think it was the Minuteman, which didn't require tanks of toxic chemicals or cryogenic liquids. And they could be launched with less warning because you didn't have to put the fuel in the rocket. The rocket was basically fuel. Anyway, so the Air Force had this, and they got all of the nukes. And it turned out that the bombers were pretty vulnerable to anti-aircraft weapons. It was like they wouldn't get through anyway. And the ICBMs, well, they would. But then it was this, but they were vulnerable to a first attack, right? If they were in these silos. And if you knew where the silos were, you could attack them with like 2 or 3 warheads for each silo, and then potentially destroy the missiles. So that was bad. So they said, well, submarines are hard to find. I mean, they're hard to find in that detecting them if they're out there sailing around. So let's put missiles in submarines. Kind of like, big nuclear warheaded flying torpedoes. So that became part of the nuclear triad that you hear about. He launched ballistic missiles, or, launched, and then we had the land-based, and then the bombers, so that's the triad. We had a dyad before that, before the submarines. The triads have been around long enough that nobody remembers we just had a dyad, but we did. That was it. And the Air Force had that. So it was not only a strategic decision to try to build a deterrent force that would withstand the first strike, right? That was the idea, that if all the bombers and land-based missiles got blown up in the first strike, the submarine-launched ones would still be around and they would carry enough destructive power to obliterate whatever attacked us. So that's how this thing happened, the George Washington. This was the prototype, the very first one that launched these missiles. The inside of this, for a reason that's unknown, has this blob on it. And it looks like, like that might have been some cement that got on it and bubbled it up, but I don't think so. I really don't know why that's there. There's no reason for it to be there. But it's a real blemish, and when this folds down, it'll fold up like that and then fold down. It's really obvious. So I'm going to try to get rid of it. Filing at it and sanding it. And again, it leaves some marks on the hull, but those can be sanded out. And it's just a weird flaw. And it's not a mold. It's like when this came out of the mold, or in the mold. When the mold pulled away, it was like there was like a blob that just adhered. It didn't come out of the mold cleanly. And it's my hypothesis anyway. And when I'm done fiddling around with this bit, paint should be dry enough on the other so I can fix the pipes. There's tiny, silly little molding flaws in those pipes. It's just too obvious. The curved surface, it's hard to get it perfectly flat. Let me polish it and see how it looks. It'll be better than before, no matter what. That much I know. It's pretty much not just trying to get rid of the scratches from the files. There's the filing puts scratches in it, and that will show. Another one of those things where if you're looking for it, or unless you're me, you saw it when it happened, you probably never noticed that these were there, these flaws. But I can still feel it, but can't really see it. It's not like the giant blob isn't really there anymore. It might show up when it's painted. I don't know. It's going to be flat paint, so not like a glossy paint would show any kind of scratch or flaw. Yeah, I might mess with this a little more later, but that's that. I'm just going to show you how this is supposed to work. This stand is supposed to go together. You can see, and you can see where the seams are going to show, where there's extra flashing and things like that. And then there's holes here, and those cup around the hinges. So it's supposed to go like this and like this, and then this part goes. Good. Well, no, not like that at all. It goes like this. Because that's supposed to be, you know, against the submarine, not on the outside of it. And there's these little tabs. And the tabs are supposed to go in the back of the submarine. This is really kind of fiddly. There we go, like that. Yeah, see, it's supposed to flop up like that and then flop down. It does the flopping down part pretty well. The flopping up part, yeah, not so good. And then that's how that broke. Okay, there's these tabs. Tabs there that is supposed to keep it from going too far. And I can see somebody was test fitting this and they just pushed against it too hard because these aren't fitting very well like that and like that, and they popped the hinge off. Anyway, that's how this is supposed to flop back and forth. And it's supposed to work, and it kind of does. Yeah, most of that blob is gone. There's just a little raised part and some roughness there. But when that's painted, that won't be too bad. Well, I'll set this back on the box. I'm not going to mess with these right now because I want to get those. I'm going to get those pipes done. The flawed pipes. Okay, again, you can barely see it, but I'm going to hold it like this because I want the residue to mainly fall away on the top of the pipe. Yep, yeah, it just didn't stay, did it? And since this is off anyway, to just take it off and deal with this offline. Flat spot the pipes, but the two sides of the mold didn't come together. It won't be perfect, but it'll be better. This one needs to be reattached. And hopefully it'll be okay. Okay, I'm going to get the model cement back out again, get the toothpick back out again, and reattach it. let it set for a bit, and then repaint it. Just go slowly here, because I don't want to have a big problem, or even a small problem. I don't want a problem on the cementing part of all of this. No, don't fall. And then, I know, it looks pretty scuzzy, but once it's repainted, it will look okay. Let the cement set up for a bit, and then get the beige paint out again, and the beige paint brush, and then repaint these. So while I'm letting this set up, let's see what the nose cone looks like. The nose cone is not too bad. You can see the little opening supposedly where the torpedo doors are. There is some unevenness around the edges here. That when it's cemented on, there'll be a gap, and the gap will have to be filled in. But you can see that's where it broke off the tree. Every intimidation, you hit nat 20s. Seriously, you just kept hitting rolling nat 20s. Well, I would say yes, if all you're doing is rolling nat 20s on your intimidation. If you were a member of Dice and Dungeons, I would say definitely not, because with us, we would be rolling nat 20s until we actually used it. Oh, you did it in the campaign already, yeah. I mean, go with it until it stops working, right? It's like the hot hand in basketball kind of thing, right? It's somebody can't miss a shot, so you just keep feeding them the ball until they miss a couple of shots, and then try something else. But yeah, if you're rolling nat 20s, definitely do that. On Dice and Dungeons, which is our Dungeons and Dragons show, which you need to watch if you're not already, streams with a live chat on Sunday on Twitch at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 3 Sundays a month, or if you missed that, you can always catch the old ones on YouTube or as a podcast. We don't come by nat 20s very often, except when it doesn't matter. Okay? Like if we decide that we're going to a magic shop and we want to get a discount on an item, and Nines decides to cast do persuasion or something. Anyway, some sort of spell that requires a die roll, and it's always a 3. Except when it doesn't matter at all, when it's something silly, like we want a discount on a croissant in a bakery, then we get nat 20s. My character, the Furbog Fighter, occasionally in combat will roll a nat 20, which is nice, because then it's more likely that I won't be killed. So I'm in a recent combat, actually more than once, this has happened more than once, I have advantage on my attack roll. Right. I got my trusty 2 D20s, my pair of D20s, and I roll them. And one is a 1 and one is a 2. That is usually how it goes. Dice and dungeons, and then of course I'm attacked back, and my adversary rolls in that 20, and I'm mostly dead. But yeah, wow, go with it. And thanks for joining in here and chatting. I am working on shaping pieces for the submarine while I'm waiting for some cement to set on some parts that I just glued together before I touch them up with this beige paint. So this is the nose of the submarine. Okay. That will eventually get glued on to the hull of the submarine, or cemented on, I guess, to be more precise. And when these things come off the sprue, there's usually pieces of plastic that are protruding that need to be sanded and filed down. Sometimes there's really mold flaws in the molding process itself. Parts really don't fit together very well. Like this, you can see. No, that's not too bad. This piece actually isn't too bad, considering, in comparison to some of the others. There's, you can see there's a dimple there where the mold didn't fill completely with plastic, but yeah, it's mostly not too bad. Let's see. But if this is going to set, it's set by now. So I get this stirred up. The tops of the pipes had a mold seam that showed, and I didn't see it till I painted it, and then I didn't like it. No, Sarah didn't like it, and so I filed them down. Now I need to repaint them. It might take 2 coats. This is just painting on raw plastic at the moment. I don't want to pile the paint up too thick. This dries fairly quickly, so I should get a second coat on before the stream ends. Just to remind everybody, I will not be streaming Friday, and quite likely not streaming next week. I'm dog sitting, and I want to be really cautious with the dogs. I don't want anything to happen, while I'm like leaving them alone. Even though I'm told it's perfectly safe to do that for several hours even. Especially Friday, I don't want to take a chance until they get used to me and my sitting with them. Okay. What's where here? This goes here. That. These are 4 decks in 2 compartments, which you can't see because I moved the camera earlier. Yeah, 4 decks in 2 compartments that go at the back of the submarine that I'll show you a bit on the instruction sheet. They go like this, with a bulkhead in between. That bulkhead is already semi-installed in the hull of the submarine. This bulkhead back here is this piece. This is that. Okay, so these bits go into the back of the submarine, and then when that's done, it will look like this. This much of it has already been put together, and this is that part. And then the nose goes on, and the tail goes on, and this upper deck here needs to be cemented in, and then all these seams around the edges need to be filled in and sanded down, and then eventually painted. The thing I was messing around with a little bit was the hull, the other hull, the fold-down hull, and those are the stands. So there's that. Yeah, I didn't get... Yeah. trying to think about whether I should pull this out and show it off or not. I was going to do some test fitting for this, but I think I'm not going to. Doing that usually, after, as I get later in the stream, odds of something bad happening increase because you start losing focus and hand gets a little shaky and that kind of thing. So I think I'm going to call the most of what I'm doing done. That is to say, these decks are done now. This bulkhead is done. The escape hatch is done. And they're all ready to be installed into the hull of the submarine. And the next time I do Submarine Wednesday, which will probably be 2 weeks from now, I'm going to put these in, and then the inside of the submarine will essentially be done. There is a bunch of stuff to be done on the outside of the submarine, including the tail, that is going to go on and on and on and on, because it just goes on and on and on. And then I'll just mention it now. If you look at the edge, this is where it's cut away. Okay. What I really should do is I should paint the edge of all of these compartments, and you can see it here, where all these edges are, where it's cut away. That should be painted the whole color. And just getting that on the edge should be a really easy thing to do, but I've gotten it on like over the edge sometimes, and so it's not that easy to do. But all of these edges should be like lightly scraped down because of paint buildup underneath it, and then painted so that it looks like the iron of the hull or the steel of the hull. But yeah, there's more to be done than meets the eye, unfortunately. And most of that being done is going to wait for another day because of the better part of valor kind of thing. But this stuff is now ready to go into the hull, and once that's done, the interior of the submarine, other than the edging, is going to be done. So I'm going to cover this up and let it rest for 2 weeks until I get back. And in the few remaining moments, I've got these pieces of the stand, and why not? I'll get my file out again and my fine sandpaper and finish prepping these. And what I might end up doing then is priming them. Actually, what I should do off camera is get these pieces and prep them and prime them so that I can put them together on the stream. I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to decide about what to do with that. It's getting to the point now where, other than getting all of these edges painted without painting off of the edges onto the bulkheads, okay, I want to get paint on the floors and the bulkhead walls and stuff. Other than doing that, most of it has to do with attaching things to the hull and getting the tail of it done. A lot of that's not going to be terribly interesting to watch because it's just going to be filing and sanding and cementing. So we'll see. But I probably will stream painting these edges because that offers the opportunity for me to go, oops, no, I need to repaint the whole thing and sand it down and paint this other thing where I got paint on it where I didn't want paint on it. And that's always fun to watch, is me messing up and doing that kind of thing. Some of the rest of this might be kind of interesting. Like once these are cemented together, they're going to have seams that will show. And I want to fill those in and sand them down so they don't show. And the same is going to be true around the nose when this is cemented on around the back of it. This doesn't matter. This is supposed to fold up and down, so it doesn't ever really, it doesn't really fit. It's just going to be there for show. So there's a bunch of stuff yet to be done. What I am going to do on the stream, though, is I'm going to show the assembly putting these pieces into the hull, because that's always kind of fun to watch, and then you get to see the rest of the submarine, and sometimes they fit and sometimes they don't, and sometimes I get real grumpy about it and sometimes I don't. So these will get fit in, and then they'll be able to show off this whole inside, and then I'll start painting the edges and hopefully not just make a mess of things and have to grumble about it. And then, mess around with this a little bit. And then eventually, I'm going to have to mask, once the nose and the tail are put on, mask this entire thing, with good masking tape around all of the edges, and then spray paint the entire outside of the hull, because it's just this kind of shiny plastic, and it's got little marks on it and stuff. It looks crappy, but once it's painted, it looks pretty good. Yeah, so that's kind of the plan. It's getting real close to being done. Other than, because there's going to be breaks between now and March, I've given up on finishing it in the first quarter of the year. But anyway, it'll be done soon. And then I'll have to move on to something new. I'm going to make a decision to get rid of the SR-91 Aurora, as I wanted to show it to you because it's just such a weird thing. A model of a plane that probably doesn't really exist, but might. And I'm probably not going to do the Lotus Ford race car. I am going to leave, for now, the convertible 1957 Corvette and the Star Trek Bridge as contenders. So I'll be down to 3, and then I'll pull maybe another one out just to show off the kind of models that I've got and make a decision about what will follow the submarine on Submarine Wednesdays. So, yeah, I've got a few more minutes. Find my file. Yeah, where's the file? Find my file. The square file. I thought I put them away. Did I just drop it somewhere? That's so weird. Got things down and there it is. Right where I left it, where I shouldn't have left it. So these parts aren't too bad. There's just like a screw thing hanging out there that needs to be filed off so that it's not sticking up. I'm going to prime the stand, but I'm not sure what color I'm going to end up painting it. Unfortunately, I really can't really paint the stand until the submarine hull is attached, because I don't want the seams to show. Okay, where the two halves come together, I don't want those to show. So I can't paint it until I've filled those in and sanded them down, but I can't fill them in and sand them down until it's assembled. And the only way to assemble it is by having the hull of the submarine attached. So painting the stand will mean, after this is all painted, masking it off carefully, and then painting the stand. Alternatively, I could paint the stand and mask the stand off, and then paint the submarine. I'll decide. I'll decide when it comes time to do that. It was a lot easier when I built this originally, when I was in grade school, because I didn't paint this. It didn't get painted at all. So it was just a matter of gluing it together, and I didn't fill in the seams, so it was just a matter of gluing it together, and then it was done. and at a sufficient distance and dim light, it looked okay. Dice and Dungeons thanks you for joining in today. We really appreciate it. I will not be streaming on Friday, and next week is uncertain because of my dog watching gig. So I will be back after that, so please don't disappear. Please don't disappear. I want you back watching Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons in about a week and a half, where I will be working on a Basilisk minifig, and then I'll be working on a Quetzalcoatl minifig, and then I'll also be moving ever so slowly, arduously almost, to the final conclusion of the assembly of the Renwall submarine. Thanks again. If you like what you see, please become a follower of the stream. If you go onto YouTube, you can become a sponsor, and you can also go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons and become a patron. It's patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and that would be terrific. If you become a patron, you get access to our warm-up improv sessions that we do before the Dungeons and Dragons show, because we need to be warmed up, before we do a show. And you also get access to the Dungeon Mistress's notes, session notes, which are interesting to read because they are frequently of the sort of, I planned this and the team and the group didn't do any of the things I planned for. So I have learned to keep my plans sort of open-ended, because you never know what these guys are going to do. We often get into squirrel syndrome. Something comes up and we just run with it and take up an entire session doing things that were not planned. So this is how this is supposed to fit together eventually. You can see how how you end up with a seam along here that needs to be filled in and sanded down front and back, or even the parts that sort of fit. There we go. And then the submarine hull has these little pins that are supposed to fit into these holes, and then it hinges down. And then once that's done, this cradle sort of thing is supposed to cement onto the back of the submarine that has all of the insides, and hold it steady so that it doesn't fall down and break into all sorts of weird pieces. Oh, okay. So that's not fitting. Wonder what's up with that. There's test fitting. When I built this kit as a kid, as a young teen, no, that's the problem. Okay. This excess plastic on the pin, which was keeping it from closing the gap. And it's just the kind of thing you get. I don't remember really test fitting stuff when I built this kit originally as a kid. I think I just slathered cement on it, and the tube cement melted the plastic enough so that if there was a piece that wasn't fitting, it ended up fitting, whether it wanted to or not. This is why I tested things, and then I notice something and go, oh, that's the problem. Now I can see what the issue is. This pin had extra plastic around the bottom, and so it didn't close. And it's still not closing completely. There's still a little bit extra there, but it's closer. It was one of those things where the two halves of the mold did not fit together. It happened to be on the base of this pin, which means that there was plastic in the way of the thing closing completely. Okay, well, enough messing around with this. I'm going to just wash these down and then prime them. Yeah, that's how that sits. That's the stand, which will be painted something. Either the submarine hull color or maybe black, or maybe, I don't know, rust-colored primer I think would look really good on it. Let's see if I can have some of that around. Yeah, that's enough. I'm going to call it a session. I'll show you again that I did something. I got the decks done. They are ready to be installed. This is the last bulkhead. That's an escape hatch. Once those are put into the submarine, the inside of the submarine will have been assembled. And then I need to do the edging, cleaning up the edges here that show where the cutaway is. This deck needs to be cemented in, and then I need to get the nose and the tail done. Stand, there's lots of little bits yet that need to be done, but it is, I don't know. When I started all of this, it was like I'm painting torpedoes, and it just kept getting more and more and more and more until as it went on. Yeah. But it will be done, and I will then either be working on like a Porco Rosso Savoia airplane, or maybe a Star Trek Enterprise command bridge. Yeah, some other model. So, thank you so much. I will be back maybe a little bit next week. I can't promise, but definitely the week after next with more relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. I appreciate you watching, and yeah, have a good day.